I'm Rob from Barefoot Gaming, and I am here to address two frequently asked questions about the DOF Reality H6. I get asked over and over, I figured I may as well put a video together for this. Number one, does this thing actually not require motion compensation? Spoiler, it does not, and I'll explain why. Number two, how did I clean up all the cables underneath to make it look all sleek and fancy like? Let's hit both of those. Let's do this. Now, the question I get asked over and over again is, why does this system not require motion compensation? And I'm going to do my best to try to explain it so that it makes sense. Now, what happens is there's arms all around on the motors that move this system up and down. And when we measure them from dead center down, they go 1 5/8 of an inch. When we measure them from dead center up, it moves 1 5/8 of an inch. And that is on the most extreme holes. There's 2 holes, and that is measuring from the most extreme. So at the most, to understand, if you are at the very bottom, you are moving 3 1/4 inches up. If you're at the very top, you're moving 3 1/4 inches down. That's significant. However, that is only from a bottom out position or from a highest, like a jump style position where you've hit a bump and you've lifted. 1 5/8 of an inch, to give you some perspective of how far that is in movement up and down. I had Louis sit up against the chair and moved it up against the wall, and I just had him slouch, right? I just had him, just kind of slouch a little bit. And it moved 1 3/4 of an inch, just with a slouch. Now, I think you can understand that a slouch does not require motion compensation, right? You could slouch in a game as much as you want, and it's not going to be, oh, that's throwing me off. My head is sticking out the door. It's not moving you as much as you think it is. It feels like you're moving a lot, and when you see it moving, it's moving a lot, except the throw distance is actually quite short. And that's why this system doesn't require motion compensation. If it was spinning you around, if it was doing something else aside from just moving you up and down and giving you a lean, which again is not enough of a lean any more than you just kind of shifting your head a little bit. So it doesn't require motion compensation. That is the point that I hopefully have done a better job explaining. Now, the next question I get asked a lot about is, how did I hide up all the cables? And it's both complex and not complex. We built a platform to lift the entire system up, and we used 2x6s and 2 sheets of plywood because we wanted it to be really strong. So we framed the outside just with 2x6s, and then we ran 1 2x6 diagonal down the center so that it was also reinforced. First thing we found out is when we put the H6 on top of the box, it sounded like a drum. Every little bit of movement was amplified like crazy. So we put little pieces of carpeting just underneath the 6 points of the feet, and that totally went away. So the box is solid. That's not an issue. Next up, we wanted all the power box and the control boxes to sit underneath. So again, with 2x6, there was room, although I would recommend doing 2x8s if anyone is going to do this, just to give you room in case cables have to pull over top it all. So 2x6s give you room to actually slip both control boxes underneath. Then what we did is I just got floor vents. And I mean, they were a little too deep, so we had to remove the skirting that went around it and dropped it in directly over where the fans come up so that the boxes don't even overheat. Super important, you gotta make sure that that thing can breathe. Next up, we covered the whole thing with just the stick-on tiles, something super inexpensive, but I wanted it to look nice, and it's not high traffic. People step on it and step into the simulator, so it's not something that's gonna get a lot of wear, and it's been used a lot, and it still looks really good. Next up, you have to run powered USB if you're going to be extending any of the USB stuff in this system. Super duper important. I cannot stress that enough. Now, we went a couple extra steps and we actually wired up 2 switches so we could plug in both boxes separately, and we would never forget, so we could actually flip them both off. All of the cables needed to be extended for the motors themselves, and I double checked with DOF Reality and they said that was not a problem. What I used is Moretz, electrical Moretz. So I cut all the cables, which was a little bit scary because it's a very expensive system, but I cut all the cables. I bought extension cord, like 3-prong extension cord for the power. And yeah, I extended all of the cables just with Moretz. I cleaned up the ends, put them together, and that was it. So obviously, you're working with electrical, you have to be careful, but people have been asking, and that is how we took care of this. And it looks really good. It handles really well. It has worn nicely, and the H6 is still working perfectly. So that's how we cleaned up all the cables. And that is it. Those are the points that I needed to address. Now that I've addressed them, I'm sure more questions will come up that I didn't think of. But for now, hopefully this will be very helpful for those of you wondering. Thank you again so much for watching. And we've got lots more reviews coming. Talk to you soon. See ya.